Deleted Session, June 1, 1979. Now, by the standards your brother Richard once believed in, and by the standards that your sister-in-law once believed in, they are both relatively successful. He is a senior executive. She is a woman with children grown, and they have a fine home in the country. They are, as Robert declared so emphatically, nice people, well-intended people. Along the way, they discovered those original standards were wanting. They did what they thought they were supposed to do, but do not feel nearly the sense of accomplishment or pleasure with their lives that they once expected. Robert is fond of both of them, as you are, but he saw them in their actuality, as themselves and as representative of many people in general. They actually represent the ways in which beliefs can dull native qualities of mind and heart alike, so that the intellect seems opaque, and emotional relationships are unduly tangled. Robert is working with the nature of impulses, and old ideas about impulses, spontaneity, and discipline rose to mind. For the family situation of your brother and his wife almost typifies the kind of situation that Robert was determined to avoid. And he thought, what was the entire affair really? For it seemed to lack any kind of discipline. It seemed to him, with the force of old beliefs, that Ida, Richard, and the children were indeed driven willy-nilly by contradictory impulses, and that their lives lacked any organizing inner purpose. The boy, Rob noted, David, who has quit school, Cecil, had an automobile accident. What was that but impulsiveness, unthinking behavior? Robert had used all kinds of discipline, you see, lest he fall back into the common ground from which it seemed most people came from. He is in a period where he is trying to release impulses, but one look at that situation, momentarily now, panicked him, so that he began to wonder if any discipline was not worthwhile to prevent what he considered that kind of intuitional and intellectual sloth. He is real to your family, he tries to help them, and he tried to deal with his own responses. He tried to rouse William's intellect and intuitions, but to his utter amazement, he found both more dormant than he had expected. Let me clear the issues. Generally speaking now, Dick and Ida seldom followed their own impulses, no matter, for example, how impulsive Dick might have seemed at times in the past. Both of them distrusted themselves to a far greater degree than either of you ever did, so that the fine grains of originality were dulled in all areas of their lives. They did what they believed was expected of them. For a time, they rebelled, not in response to their own impulses, however, but in response to the demands of others. Your brother, to some extent, identified strongly with your father, seeing him as the intellectual, the inventor held in bonds, almost enthralled by the emotional demanding woman. He blamed your mother for all of their problems. In his own family, he made sure that the male domain, the study, was separate from the family roots. Not to be shared, books were not left around the house for women or children to misuse. He squashed what intuitive abilities he had, and finally considered, for example, poetry unmanly. His place of work became his male domain. He wanted children to be frightened of him, for this proved that he was indeed superior, and not given to emotional outbursts. His behavior, however, led him, of course, to quite powerful emotional outbursts, which frightened him. Ida married him because she believed his educational status and his Anglo-Saxon background meant a step upward for herself and her children. She did as she was told for many years. You have always been a hero, and yet a mystery to your brother Dick, a source of pride and yet of embarrassment. He considers sardine dreams feminine, and to paint pictures of them presents a second mystery. His own varied intuitional abilities, however, have always acted as a bridge between you, so that he feels a close affinity that he does not understand. He feels some affinity to Ruber for the same reason, but Ruber also upsets him because he disapproves of women who think, and is very frightened because Ida in later years has started to criticize some of their joint beliefs. But Ruber thought, this is what most people are like, and if I give in to my impulses, will the days slide by me like that? Dick finds pleasure in golf because it represents an area in which he has hope of performing with some effectiveness, of acting with a spontaneity that knows its own order, and of experiencing his nature's sense of power. Robert wrote a poem yesterday morning, considering it afterward briefly, wondering whether it was really good enough to type as it was, throwing off in an odd moment a dot, a concept that would represent the highest revelation to Ida, if she could understand what it means. Ida and Dick both believe to a far greater extent again than you two ever did, that the self is unsavory and dangerous. Ida was afraid to see the psychologist again, for fear that therapy would throw up evidence of this feared evil thing, and Dick is afraid of writing poetry again, lest the intuitions upset his life. He used meditation as a tranquilizer to dull his senses and mind, and not for understanding himself. Robert's impulses gave birth to his poetry, to his writing, and to the freedom of his intellect, and the heavy-handed discipline has always been impeding. He felt partially helpless, realized that neither Dick nor Ida read the books. He wanted to improve physically before their eyes, in a flash of a moment, to show them physically that it could be done. All of these caused muscular tensions, but he was appalled at what he considered Dick and Ida's laxness in so many areas, and it seemed that that was the natural human condition, so that you must exert great discipline to keep yourself aloof from it. It is not the natural condition of the species to begin with, and naturally, neither of you were that way. The truer you are to yourselves and to your natural impulses, the less you will be that way. Robert has been doing well, with your help. I want to emphasize that your brother and sister-in-law have their own purposes, and I am not putting down their realities. I want you to realize also, however, that like many others, they have no handle on the world, so to speak, no perspective outside of their experience from which they can view their lives, and I want you to appreciate those dimensions in your own reality. Do you have questions? Rasid, Jane said she picked up from you this morning some things about Prentice Hall. Our troubles with them about cover designs, their attitudes, and so forth. Sid said, I forget. That was to me implied. But it was not stated here. Dick, again, uses golf in order to actualize to some extent his feeling toward an ideal. He does not have that in his work any longer. The people apprentice and generally speaking at any publishing house live more or less at the level you saw yesterday. Each person sends an ideal and has good intent. But those ideals and good intents are distorted by beliefs and by the conditions accompanying them. There are people who work in art departments as a living, gifted certainly more than most with an ability to visually portray an idea. They sense an ideal, but those ideals and abilities are everywhere distorted by millions of other considerations. What do they think of their art themselves? To what purpose do they use it? What does their wife or husband think? What does the boss think? Whose version is the final one for a cover? What does the artist think of the subject matter? What are the artist's standards of excellence? The artist's standard of excellence is often the necessity of keeping his job, and he has to keep his job because he fears he is not, after all, a true artist, or he would be painting a great painting. And at work, his art must be further distorted, it seems to him, by the ideas of salesmanship and advertising. Your covers represent the attempt to express an ideal in the context that exists in the publishing field. The difference between your idea of an excellent cover and the actuality, and the difference between your kind of experience and your brother's, should help you become more aware even of the need for our joint work in the world. I do not think you understand completely. I am not speaking of the fact that your brother has a family and children, and you do not. And I am not forgetting you have problems. I am saying that the quality of your lives is far more satisfying in comparison to others than you realize, and that the kind of experience you have chosen offers the most productive challenges. You always have something to look forward to. Clear insight, the closest approximation to truth that you might attain, where many others live in a maze, in which it seems that any hope of effecting change is literally impossible. Privately, do you have questions? Ralph said, nope. Your way is difficult, but it has unusual rewards. Those who have followed old beliefs do not have it easy either, and they do not know where to turn. Count your blessings. Incidentally, Ruber should get up at such times. End of session and a fond good evening. Ralph said, okay, thank you.